why don't you just sit up front?
Dan Beecroft would report to the Public Information Center, please. Your crew is waiting. Dan Beecroft, Public Information Center, your crew is waiting.
Tom Roberts, please report suppressed information. Tom Roberts, please report suppressed information. Please come to the Public Information Center. Al Desmond is awaiting for you. Bill and Shirley Stukel, please come to Public Information. Al Desmond is here waiting for you. Ray Cooper, please report to your pilot, Ralph Hewitt, who is on the field. Ray Cooper, please report to the Public Information Center to meet your pilot, Ralph Hewitt. Will all spectators please clear the launch field? If you are not a pilot or a member of a launch crew, you should be outside of the launch field area. Will all spectators please clear the launch field? If there are any vehicles which are not chase crews, they also should clear the launch field. Stan Vanderberg's chase crew please come to public information? Will a member of Stan Vanderberg's chase crew please come to press and public information? Driveway on E Street, and it must be moved or it will be towed away. A green Dodge van, Colorado license plate PK5603. You are blocking a driveway on E Street. It must be moved or it will be impounded. Will Bill and Shirley Stukel, please come to public information booth to meet Al Desmond. Bill and Shirley Stukel, please come to public information to meet Al Desmond.
public information. Don Oz, please report to public information.
Probably. Yeah, early night. Huh? No, I don't know. I don't think so. It's calm enough now, but the sun's going down. You don't want to be out near sunset. You're right. There's Harold. You want to get him? You're not rolling, are you?
Well, I got a couple ones up on the side of the frame.
Isn't that the neat idea though? Yeah, we can freeze that. Adjust. We might have to switch the filter. Let's switch the filter.
Let that go on your frame.
Let's stop it.
Let's go. Rolling.
5-foot mic for it. I could be interviewing a guy while I'm just taking off, but just give it a couple blasts and landing up.
I don't think they'll let you that close. I don't know though.
You just gotta respect the guy. It's possible. You know, the only problem with these black ones, they look sweet still, but as soon as they get dirty.
Second shepherd on cable pullers for carbon on the animal. And they kept saying things like, they're like complaining with guys who get walking off the square down for like fucking down the day. And boy, one was uglier than on camera than he is in person. So I told Corbin to point him down at the So I kept doing it until he finally saw me. He said, oh, that's the mistake for all that picture.
Bill Casey, please report to public information.
business going?
Well, you never know. It's kind of steady. We'd love to see all you people from Iowa come down and have a lemonade now. Yeah. Shake your big head. Woo.
How you doing?
I lost Terry and Bob both already.
Probably by the run stand.
I'm not surprised she would leave, but look at her.
There is no age limit.
Except you got your mic cord wrapped around one of the wheels. Oh, I think it was Bob Michael. Anyway. Oh yeah, Willard, yeah. Yeah. Well, on the right hand side?
Coming in. There's all those things right on the corner. It's got a little blue something like that, and it's got a raven. It's got a Barnes. Trying to find somebody always supposed to be
I found out his policy.
She hasn't.
What are you doing?
Cards lately? Yeah, they had a Pontchartrain race. We thought you might have been in that one. What'd she sit on? Gum. They got that on. They got that on.
There you go, little John.
Look at this one. I'm watching home.
Check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gusty American breezes. What motivates you to ballooning? What's
Mainly
the thrill
the
in
main thing, the thrill of ballooning is the freedom. That's
it? Are we ready?
okay. The main thing about ballooning is just the freedom. You know where you're going to launch, but you never know where you're going to land. You got a good idea, a good pilot does, but in essence, you just take off and go. Just the freedom and that's really the main excitement about ballooning.
Do you have any sort of a plan in mind before you launch?
We have a good idea. The main thing we want to do is have a safe flight. That's the intent. We will move around our launch location in order to ensure a safe flight. But as a whole, we just go out there and do it, and that's all there is to it. And we just blow that thing up and go, and hopefully the crew will follow us along.
Any close calls in the last few years? Have you had any tragic experiences? Any funny anecdotes? Anything that
we haven't had anything tragic happen, but we had one good flight earlier this year. Wayne Warren and myself had a high wind flight from Pinckney to Ann Arbor, and normally the balloons fly in winds under 10 miles an hour. We covered 22 miles in 40 minutes, and we were just cooking in that thing, and that was it was a little bit scary of a flight, but we're here to talk about it. The balloon's okay, we're okay, we'll do it again.
Touchdown was a little bit bumpy?
Oh, it was slammed to the ground about 400 feet a minute from the trees. We saw a little field, and we decided to pull the top out, and down we came, and we were glad we were down. But like I say, we'll do it again. We flew the next day. There's no problem. We don't get scared with it. We haven't had any close calls. The people that we fly with are very safety conscious. We stay away from power lines. We try to have owner relations and landowner relations, and we're working on it all the time. Plus, we formed a club in Michigan, of which I'm the president of, and the balloonists are finally pulling together, and we're having a good time at it, having a lot of fun.
That's good. Good luck this week in Indianola.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing you.
Good enough. Thank you.
Another Michigander here at Indianola, Dave Segresha. Is this your first trip down to Indianola?
Well, flying. Last year I just came as a spectator just to see what was happening, and I just love it. So I had to come back to fly.
Just a pleasure flyer, or are you competing?
No, not competing. I haven't had enough experience competing yet, so I'm just out here having fun with all these other crazy balloonists.
A lot of old friends back here. It's kind of nice to come back and see them. Or?
Oh, yeah, and meet a lot of new ones every year. Every year you come, there's just incredible, all the balloonists.
Ballooning's exploded in popularity in the last few years. To what do you attribute the craze, so to speak?
Well, people don't. I think ballooning about 10 years ago, people thought it was just some crazy thing to do that they just couldn't believe people did it. They thought it was unsafe and crazy, almost like hang gliding was in the last couple years. Hang gliding's catching on too. All recreation's catching on. Ballooning, people are finding out, is safe. They go up and they come down, and people don't get hurt. So they love it. People get hooked.
Any recommendations for people who want to try to get some sort of a club going, to get started in ballooning?
Get started in ballooning? You look in your yellow pages under balloons. That's all. And you should find in almost all yellow pages across the country under balloons. Raven dealers are almost always listed, and you call them up to get a ride.
How did you get started in all this?
I got a ride. Got a ride from a guy one time, a friend through business, and he gave me a ride, and before I knew it, I was taking lessons, and now I own one.
It's addictive.
Oh, terribly. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Well, good luck at Indianola. Thanks for talking to us.
Take it easy.
Huh, that was great.
Maybe I'd better. Fun of doing it, and the people have just gone wild over it, and every place they've gone, and I'm going to buy a balloon, I'm going to try that, and that's where it's going to be, and it will be for a few years. It might slack off, but I doubt it very much.
Well, Captain Ellen, you're probably one of the main reasons for the explosion. Your public relations over the years.
They gave me credit for it, and I'm willing to accept it. That I kept it going, and when I made my ascension here in 1974, why, from then on, it's really been explosive all the way through. And every place I go, they sure. I go to 7 or 8, 10, 15 meets a year. They always want me to come back the next year. This is my 10th year here, but Indianola is really the spot for a balloon rally because the people are really 100% perfect. I'd say perfect because they use you right. I never see and the balloon people, the group of balloon people, the best group that ever was made. I don't care where you go. They're really a bunch of real nice people. They are, and that's the reason I'm glad that I'm associated with them.
Have you found over the years that that as things get bigger and bigger, that maybe it loses its uniqueness?
I don't think so. This will. I don't think this ever will. Really, there's too many young people growing up now and want to do this work and go with it. Like me, hell, I'm like I say, at my age, I'm still love it. I love these balloons here. I'll have one of them some of these days. But I'd like to use my smoke balloon because it's unique and people get a great kick out of it. When you leave the ground on the regular balloons, you do 2 or 3 miles an hour. When I leave the ground, I'll do 40 miles an hour. It really stretches you right out. You feel 10 foot tall when you start going like that there. I do a few tricks on it there, and like skin the cat, hang with your toes, or something like that. And it really does a good job. People get a thrill out of it, and I still love it.
You were around to see Lindbergh make his transatlantic flight and the advent of the airplane. How come you didn't go in that direction instead of ballooning?
Well, I love ballooning. That's the reason why. It's been in the family. There was 14 Allens all together in the when he started back in 1874. In 1974, like I said, I celebrated the 100th anniversary in the family, and that's how it works out, and I still love it, and I'm going to keep right at it just as long as I live. My wife and I have been married 62 years. She's traveled with me every state in the union. I've made a balloon ascension, and I have proof to prove it from write-ups that I have. I have a book at home with over 1,000 write-ups in. I have 32 albums chock full of pictures, 20 albums in each picture, or in each book, and I'm really saving them, and Malcolm Forbes would like to get a hold of them and take them to France with him, but I'm going to keep them in the United States.
How does she feel about having a daredevil around at your age?
Well, I love it.
She loves it?
Sure. My wife?
Yeah.
Oh, she don't mind it. She loves to travel, but she never has made a flight or anything, but she's done a hell of a good job taking care of the money that I took in.
She's your number one fan?
She sure is. Yes, sir. I think the world of her just as much as the first day I met her and the first day we got married. I think I love her just as much today as I ever did.
Well, we thank you for talking with us, and we wish you good health in the future.
Anytime, I'm glad to do it. If I can help you in any way, another way, if you want me a little bit more, well, it's okay with me. Just holler.
Okay.
I never turn no one down. That's what several of the boys have told me today. They said, Eddie, we think it's great because we come up and ask you if you can do a interview with you, and they never know. There never will be, because I don't feel as though I'm that great. I don't like anyone that won't get an interview. I think it's crazy. The greats and the near greats and all that there, they think they're high and mighty, but they're not any better than anyone else, but they think they are. I don't care whether you're putting this on the air or not. It doesn't bother me one damn bit because I know how I feel about it. And in fact, I've sampled some of their work and went and asked them if I could have an interview, and I got a hell of a poor answer. But they didn't know who I was. I was just different.
Well, you've been pushing ballooning now for 83 years, and because of it, it's become one of the fastest growing sports in America, and we thank you for it.
And I thank you for. I appreciate your having me talk with you.
Okay, well, thank you much.
You're welcome.
You have a nice festival.
Thank you, sir.
I'm with Harold Carter, the Georgia Peach of the Aeronauts here, and he's probably one of the more well-known of the aeronauts here. And I understand you had an interesting flight from the Bahamas just about a year ago.
Well, I did, but before I go into that, it's the first time I've been called the Georgia Peach before. You guys from Michigan or something else. Y'all gonna have to come down and see what a real Georgia Peach is. Yeah, Bimini, Bahama to Fort Lauderdale, and well, aircraft boat. Quite an interesting experience.
Tell us about that in a little bit more detail, how you landed on that boat.
It's a long, long story. No, well, we were down for the Fort Lauderdale Bahama U.S. Ocean Balloon Race, which was about the last week of June in '78, and it's been an annual affair for about 3 or 4 years, and this is the first year I'd been down to it. Very interesting thing. It's quite a bit of organization to get some 17 balloons with all the equipment and extra propane it takes to make a 60-mile flight, and just the logistics and mechanics of getting that much stuff over to the island of Bimini was quite an ordeal. But we got over there. We did have 17 balloons. Each balloon had about 80 or 90 gallons of propane with each balloon to make the flight. And the morning of the race, it was postponed because of the lack of winds, and that's kind of unusual. Today we're being postponed because it's too windy, and in the Bimini race we were postponed because we didn't have enough wind. That is to get us from Bimini to the coast of Florida. And a straight line due west would hit somewhere along between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and that was about 58 miles as the crow flies in a straight line. So that's the shortest possible distance that you could fly over water. As I went ahead and I had a problem of being able to take off in the balloon or get my balloon back. When they postponed the race, I had a promotion in Alabama the next 2 or 3 days later, and I had to get back. So I had to get my balloon back off the island of Bimini back to the States. So the boat driver that took me over there said that he would be glad to take me back, but the problem with getting my basket, which weighed probably with the propane some 800 or 900 pounds, problem of getting that from the beach where we were to inflate back to the dock where we could load on the boat was kind of insurmountable, because the natives over there is kind of people that negotiates a contract, and halfway through they want to renegotiate for more money, and I'd spent all the money I had. So we had to figure out how to get the balloon off the beach on board this 37-foot Chris Craft boat. So I decided that I would fly it off the island and land on the boat. Well, and we didn't really care which direction we were going to fly, because the boat would be our portable aircraft carrier and go wherever. So we took off. I had 60 gallons of propane, so I rode one of my crew members from Atlanta. We had about an hour's delightful flight and then landed on the deck of the boat. Literally, the sea was like glass. It was very calm. I swapped passengers, took off again, and continued to fly. And we noticed that the more we flew, the closer we got to Florida, because what little wind there was directly toward the coast, and it was picking up a bit. So after we had flown about 3 hours, we decided that we would go for broke. We thought we could perhaps make the shoreline. So I cut out all the passenger carrying and took on board all the rest of the fuel that I had. And I took off by myself, and I had a delightful flight. I went up over some clouds, and the sun was shining down, and I had the silhouette of the balloon down on the clouds with a 360-degree rainbow aurora around the balloon. It's just an incredible sight. I wish I could show it to the people watching today, but it was just fantastic. And we went ahead and through a series of different things that happened. I guess I'll tell you about one of them. I thought that I could take on board 20 gallons of propane, which weighs about 120 pounds, just by people handing it to me. I floated along by the side of the boat rather than landing on the boat. I thought they could hand me the weight, and I could turn on my two 11 million BTU burners and overcome the extra weight and take off again without getting a drink. Well, I was sadly mistaken, because I realized I was mistaken as I sank in the water up to my chest, and I was still burning with both hands trying to get out of the water again. So I had to shut down my fuel system to reconnect my extra tank, and to do that I had to have a way to relight the balloon. I realized that all my sparklers and everything was wet, so before I shut down the fire, I tried to figure out how I was going to relight it. So, well, I'll just take my sectional chart here and light it and hold it over here to one side and shut it down and make the changes with one hand, and then I'll relight the pilot light with my sectional chart. Reached for my sectional chart, and it was sopping wet too. So, to make a long story short, all I had to do was really dry out one of my sparklers in the burner or the heat and relight it. But that was kind of an interesting experience. We flew till about 8:30, and they had a Navy patrol plane came over and radioed down to us if we needed any help. We told them we were doing fine. We continued to fly a little further. And I thought I was going to really make the shoreline, but the closer we got in, the more southerly the wind was. In other words, it started going north away from the coast, and the coast was kind of veering out away from, or paralleling the coast would be the best way to say. So we weren't getting any closer. We were just flying up the shoreline after we got about 12 or 15 miles in, and so it got to be about 9 o'clock. The sun was setting, so we decided the best thing to do was go ahead and land the boat land the balloon on the boat. Well, we'd done that 3 times already, but the problem this time was we had about 3 to 4 foot seas, about a 15-knot wind, and it was getting dark.
How big was this balloon? This boat?
The boat was only 37 feet, and it had just a deck space not too much bigger than the hood of a couple of pickup trucks you see parked out here. And with that in mind, we did get it down, and I got about maybe a third of the balloon in salt water, which is no big problem. We pulled it in on the bow of the boat and got it packed up, and we got into Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale just in time to pay customs an additional $25 for overtime to let us get back in the country again. But it was a real delightful experience. It was not one I'd really care to do again, but it was, I don't regret having done it one time.
You were followed the whole time by this cutter then, so if at any time you had an unfortunate accident and you had to ditch the balloon, they could pull you out.
That's quite true, and that's the only way I'd attempt something like that, to have somebody underneath me all the time. Now, keep in mind the propane tanks would keep the balloon aloft and keep it floating, but it would just be a hassle to try to drag a wet balloon in. One fellow, when he did have the race a week later, one fellow ran out of propane and had to ditch in the ocean, and his envelope sank, went underwater. And when I say sank, it just went underwater. The basket was still floating on top. And it was so heavy, it just acted as a sea anchor. They were not able to pull it into the boat, and he had to cut about a $8,000 or $10,000 balloon loose with a pocket knife and just watch it sink down into the Gulf Stream, which was a very sad experience.
With tears streaming down his cheeks, and
I'm sure.
Have you any more adventures like that in store?
Oh, well, 77, I won the Helen Atlantic balloon race, and that was kind of an interesting flight. I flew my longest distance over land. At one time, I flew about 137 miles. That was an experience. Not too many terribly exciting things happened on that trip, though. But just ballooning in general is what I love. You just get to meet so many different people and travel around the countryside. And I've made a lot of nice friends flying balloons. Besides the personal pleasure that I've had myself, I've introduced it to a lot of other people and shared the experience with them, and they all seem to enjoy it.
Why ballooning? What's the thrill in it? There's no sensation of speed. What's the motivation to get you to climb in the basket each time?
Well, my nickname in ballooning circles is Weird Harold, and I guess that's a pretty good nickname. I enjoy doing things different. I can even remember back when I decided to go to college, all my friends wanted to go to the University of Georgia, and I went up to Clemson in South Carolina. It's the only person from my hometown that went there, and I just always liked to do things that was different. And ballooning is, of course, very different. I've always been tremendously interested in aviation. I've took my first flying lesson in an airplane in 1962, I believe it was, and got my pilot's license in 67, and I missed out on pilot training in the Air Force due to a high frequency hearing loss, and therefore I was always kind of lost because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go in the Air Force and fly, and then maybe go with the airlines. But since I didn't get to do that, ballooning, I kind of got into ballooning in 72 and built my first hot air balloon, and from then on I've gotten into it. I've been in it full time since 73.
You build it yourself?
Yeah, another friend in Atlanta, and I built and designed the first balloon in Georgia to be registered there. Quite an ordeal. That's another thing that I'm not sorry I did, but I wouldn't care to do it over again. But it's just a delightful experience, and it's been the only way that I have been able to work my way into aviation, into a livelihood related to aviation, and I'm in it now full time. I'm a commercial professional balloonist. I have a 3-state distributorship for Raven hot air balloons, and Raven Industries is the oldest and largest manufacturer of modern day hot air balloons. They're located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I just enjoy doing it, and it's just a nice, interesting situation. Just think, if I wasn't a balloonist, I'd probably be back in dull Atlanta, Georgia right now. Atlanta's not dull. Atlanta's a good town, but Indianola's a fun place to be in August in the National Balloon Championship too.
Yeah, we think so too, and we thank you for talking with us.
Well, we appreciate it. Have you ever had a balloon ride?
No, I haven't.
Well, maybe we can do something about that this week.
Okay, well, I hope so too.
Then I'll interview you and ask you the questions.
At least maybe I'd be able to explain the experience.
Right, it'd be very good.
Do you find a sort of religious experience in this, communing with nature type thing?
I will certainly confess, the first time I went up to any altitude, I went up to about 3,000 feet, and I just thank God out loud in a prayer to the good Lord for giving me the opportunity of seeing His beautiful world from that distinct and very unique vantage point. And it's you get off up there by yourself, and it does give you some time to really meditate, and you're just up there alone with your Maker, and it's quite an experience.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That looked like it's trying to take off.
He'll be Des Moines
Leslie Pritchard, please report public information. Your crew is here.
This side.
With Wayne Warren, a native of Clarkston, Michigan. And Wayne, what brings you to Indianola other than, well, let's start that over, all over again. All right. Just have Guy pull his head out of his ass. Oh, shit.
I'm a competitor.
Yeah, what brings you to Indianola? All right. Talking to Wayne Warren from Clarkston, Michigan. And Wayne, are you competing this year in
Yes,
Indianola?
I am. I'm currently number 19 in the standings, the point standings. Last year I was 22nd overall here. So I'm back. I want to take first this year.
What all do you have to do, in short, what do you have to execute to be champion of the National Hot Air Balloon Championships?
Every task that they're going to run will be a navigation task. It's a accuracy test on how closely you can come to a certain spot, whether it's another balloon or a mark on the ground. They're all accuracy and navigation, how close you can come. And there are 100 pilots here this week flying in the championships, the top 100.
The high winds that we're experiencing right now should make that a little bit more difficult, shouldn't it?
Yes, it will. If the winds don't drop down, they're not going to fly too much. And unless they fly, any mistake you make on the few times you do fly is going to hurt.
On a touchdown in a high wind situation like this, do you find that you get a lot of shock, a lot of personal shock when you land?
Yes, you can get a lot of shock. What happens is it's about like jumping out of a moving car going about 25 miles an hour. We're coming down out of the sky pretty fast usually when we come in a high wind. We get down about maybe 50 feet from the ground and pull the top out of the balloon. And it lets all the air out and you drop. Plus you're moving forward at whatever the wind is going. So right now the winds are about 15 to 20 knots, which is pretty fast. We won't fly in much over 12 because it hurts. A lot of the balloons you'll see here are going to have wicker baskets on them. The older balloons had aluminum. The late 60s were designed with aluminum baskets because they were strong physically. But they don't have any give to them, so they went back to the old world wicker, which has a lot of give to it, but it's not quite as strong. It's not as sturdy. It breaks easier. It takes a lot more maintenance.
Have you ever had any experiences about jumping out of a balloon, say on a high wind situation, falling out
I fell out
on impact?
No, I have never fallen out of the balloon. The one thing that you don't want to do is fall out of it. If you fall out, the balloon's going up. There's no weight in it, so it goes.
Even with the crown pulled?
With a crown pull, it'd probably stay on the ground, but you still don't want to be bouncing out of that balloon. You got a lot of protection around you. You're still moving along 15 miles an hour, 20, whatever. It hurts.
Tell us about some of your interesting experiences that you've had with ballooning.
Which one?
Anything
Come to the information booth, please.
Oh, about a month ago, we were in Pinckney, Michigan, in a balloon race. The very first flight was canceled. They weren't going to compete because of the wind. We got down into the launch field and the wind had died out there. It was protected pretty well. So I and 2 other balloons flew. I was the first one off the ground. We got into the air and we went straight to Ann Arbor in about 20 minutes. We landed 3 blocks from the Michigan State Stadium.
The Michigan State Stadium in Ann Arbor?
How about the U of M Stadium?
Oh, okay.
I get them back.
I was going to say, that was a strong wind. That was
yeah, going the other way, too.
It's one way to beat the gas crunch, right?
Right. No, we had to land in downtown. We went up pretty high to keep away from any nasties on the ground. And when we got back close to the ground, we were already over the city limits. And that meant staying low and just taking every chance we had and wait for something to come up. And we landed in the only field we could find.
Anytime you get close to a metropolitan area like that, that brings up a lot of worries about power lines, I think, doesn't it?
Power lines, houses, cars, you name it. The opportunity is there for someone to get hurt. Not just us, but people on the ground. They do dumb things. If you fly over an expressway, people will stop in the high-speed lane and watch the balloon, and some trucker will come along and cream their car for them. I've seen that happen.
What sort of measures do you take to prevent anything bad happening to you personally in a high altitude situation like that?
Well, in a high altitude situation, you're neat. There's nothing going to go wrong. Your only problem is going to come when you're close to the ground.
Okay. When you're near a metropolitan area, then?
In a metropolitan area, your problem is running into power lines or getting thermals driving you into the ground. And that's what happens. It's common in a city to get that. Anytime there's a lot of congestion and a lot of pavement, or the ground's a lot of dark material on the ground, the sun heats it up and it causes the wind to move in circular patterns. You move into one of those things, you go up maybe for a couple, 3,000, 4,000 feet, you come out the top cold because the balloon's cooled off, then you drop, and maybe you drop into the other side of another one, and it drives you into the ground, and you can really be heating the balloon when you get there and still go into the ground.
What measures do you take to prevent an accident? Say you were flying over Ann Arbor and you got close to the city. What measures do you take to prevent something bad from happening?
Well, the best thing to do is get on the ground.
As soon as possible?
As soon as possible. And that particular flight, we were moving along pretty fast, so we got down close to the ground and just waited for something to come along. We had the winds shifting around a lot on us at upper altitudes, a couple, 300, 400 feet up even. It was moving us back and forth, and we couldn't predict anything. We lined up on several fields, and as soon as we tried for them, as soon as we dropped down to get into the field, we'd move in a different direction and miss it altogether. So what we did is we got down low and stayed there until we come up on something and put it in. We pulled the top out of the balloon about 50 feet up and hit the ground.
Well, you're ranked number 19th now. We wish you to be number 1 at the end of the week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.